wanted to be the Pink Ranger when I watched Power Rangers as a kid. So when I got to audition for the Pink Keeper, I was very excited to find the voice of Asuna. I remember they had said, make her feel a little bit more regal and like a princess. See if I can do it in one take. She was like, I would prefer that you not. I don't want you to pass out. It was a very intimidating process. It was not what I was used to. I did not do a very good audition.
You're watching convention coverage
of anime and video games, primarily working on shows like Fairy Tail as Lucy, which we got a new season now, which is great. Asuna in Sword Art Online. Lizzie and Black Butler. I'm trying to think of stuff that we've gotten to come back and do recently because we've gotten to do a lot of new stuff, which has been fun. Patty and Soul Eater. We're doing a Fairy Tale panel tomorrow, which will be very, very exciting. And yeah, I've done a lot of video games and some on-camera work as well.
So over your decade of voicing Asuna and Sword Art Online...
Yeah, isn't that weird?
It's pretty crazy. Is there anything you learned or a skill you picked up that changed how you approach voicing her over that decade?
Ooh, I still remember when I went and auditioned for Sword Art. It was my very first audition in LA when I had moved. First time working with legendary director and writer Alex Von David, and the incredible force of a producer that is Hiroe Tsukamoto, who has passed. She was in my audition. We were trying to find the voice of Asuna, and I remember they had said, just make her feel a little bit more regal and like a princess. So anytime we'll go back, because over 10 years, like sometimes we'll go 2 years have passed and you got to jump in, and I always have to, I remember Hiroe saying like, give her a little bit more of an air of a princess. And so when people say, Asuna feels very similar from Lucy, I'm like, she doesn't at all. She's a little bit more refined. She's a little bit more of a princess, and Lucy's a little bit more scrappy and will get down in the dirt. And Asuna will if she has to, but there's still like a little bit more elegance to her voice. So that's something that I always go to when thinking of Asuna.
Awesome, great. Thank you so much.
You.
Appreciate it.
My question is about one of the newer anime you're in called Go-Go Loser Ranger.
Oh, yes.
Love
so
that
fun.
one.
Thank you. Thanks for watching it.
Yeah, I love that show. I'm a big fan of Tokusatsu, so I love that kind of stuff. So
absolutely.
If you could be any other keeper besides Pink Keeper, which one would you be?
I would say that there would be another choice, but for me, there is no other choice. I always wanted to be the Pink Ranger when I watched Power Rangers as a kid. So when I got to audition for the Pink Keeper, I was very excited. And then when I got cast, I was like, man, this is like a childhood dream come true to get to be the Pink Ranger. So I'm glad I don't have to choose another one because it will always be Pink Ranger for me.
All right, well, thank you.
Thank you.
Like a Fire Emblem question. So I still actually remember how you used to voice like Sita back in Fire Emblem Heroes and Warriors all those years ago. Now you're voicing like Rhea now.
Yes, and sometimes I'll go back in for Sita again. Whenever I come in for a Fire Emblem project, I never know which character I'm going to work on. It's always a surprise.
Oh yeah. So considering now that it's like been like 5 years since Three Houses with like the time skip and now Three Hopes.
Yeah.
Looking back, is there like one favorite moment that you had throughout all the games?
Oh, for Rhea? Fire Emblem is such a really special project to be a part of because they take such great care in creating stories that have such a fantastic lore, and you really just want to dive in and get lost in that world. It's always really, really fun. Three Houses was a very special project to be a part of. My favorite note from working on that, Patrick Seitz told me, Cherami, stop trying so hard to be strong and powerful. Just know that you are strong and powerful and just exist. And I was like, no, but she's like fierce. And he goes, and you are fierce. That's why we cast you. So having to like rest in and just know that I am enough as I am was a really special moment to be a part of. And to have a director that was always constantly reminding me of that and that I didn't have to try, I could just be, was a really great lesson. So that's probably one of my favorite things with Rhea.
Great.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Thank you.
What is your favorite line as V?
There's two that people always bring up. These are two of my favorites. See in the major leagues, Jack, is one of my faves. And then the other one is, I just want the world to know I was here, that I mattered. Those are two of my all-time faves.
Thank you.
Thank you.
How did it feel going from voicing characters like I know Makoto and Aurelia, who are, like, they reserve themselves, but they're still kind of serious, to then yelling obscenities and cursing like a sailor as female V in Cyberpunk?
Yeah, it's pretty cool.
Oh, okay.
I enjoyed getting to work on Cyberpunk. I have many memories that I have frozen in my mind where I had to had to the pinch yourself moments where it's so nice to have a job and play a character that you love working on with a team that really supports you and really lets you like have fun and take risks. So I remember multiple times driving to work going, I'm so thankful and so grateful I get to work on this job. I was really sad when recording for the main game ended, and I was really sad when recording for the DLC ended, just because as dark as Night City is, it definitely feels like home. It's a lovely place to work, and I love V so much. I thought I was going to get fired the entire time I was working on this game because I couldn't believe that I was lucky enough to get to play her.
Thank you.
Thank you.
What is your favorite Sailor V moment from like the 90s or the Crystal?
I have a couple of favorite moments from the new movies, but I won't do that because they just came out, so I don't want to spoil anything from Cosmos that's on Netflix. In the 90s, since you're watching it, I won't spoil it, but I will try to be as descriptive without spoiling it. There's she gets to realize a dream near the end of the series, and there's a moment where she feels a little guilty about whether or not she should go through with this realization of a dream because she doesn't want to let her friends down. And there's a really, really sweet moment with her and Artemis. And Johnny had already recorded, and I knew that was one of my last moments of the series, and all the girls were already in, and kind of give her a little pep talk and give them her blessing, which was a really, really special moment. That was one of my favorites. And then a comedic moment, the date scene or the date episode where she's going on a double date and has to run back and forth, all that's one of my favorites. Lauren Landa had told me, you're gonna love this episode, it's gonna be so fun. And there's always, anytime you have to do a lot of hyperventilating, the director wants to do it in pieces, because if you're hyperventilating too fast and changing the tempos, there's a likelihood that you might get a little dizzy or you could pass out. And she didn't want me to do that, which is a very good director. And I said, can I just see if I can do it in one take? She was like, I would prefer that you not. I don't want you to pass out. And I was like, hey, look, if it's hard, I'll jump out. I won't do it. Just let me try. She was like, all right, fine. So we all got it done in one take. I was very dizzy afterwards. She was right. It was not a good choice, but it was a lot of fun. So I remember that moment very fondly.
Thank you.
Thank you.
What was it like? Because Pokemon's been a big part of my life, and I want to know what it was like for you to voice Chloe in Pokémon Journeys.
It was very exciting. I was also very scared. I remember I went into the audition because Pokemon up to the season that we worked on had been recorded in New York. So we would get to work on Pokemon games, but otherwise the series was in New York and they would never let anybody outside of New York work on the show because it moved so quickly. The recording process moved so quickly. So I remember when I went in to audition, my husband is also a huge, huge, huge Pokemon fan. Right after we got married, he had hundreds and hundreds of Pokemon plush in the corner that it looked like we had like Pokemon crawling up the walls. So it was very exciting to get to work on that project. But I remember when I auditioned, I was like, man, I would really love to get to be a part of this, even if it's just like a very small character. And then I remember my first session, they said, do you want to audition to voice a Pokemon? And I thought that would be so cool, but it was a very intimidating process. It was not what I was used to. I did not do a very good audition, but I was so thankful to Lisa and the rest of the team for coaching me and helping me find my way through voicing Pokemon. There's a technique to it. When you're voicing a Pokemon, you think of, I got to be the English voice of Grookey, so Grookey is the name of the character. So Grookey can only make sounds that exist within the word Grookey. So you could say Gru or Rookie or Uki or Uru. It all has to be within the name. And then you have to always consider what type of animal this Pokemon is based on. I mean, Grookey is a monkey. So what does a monkey sound like? How can I bring in those monkey sounds while also keeping Grookey's personality? And keeping Grookey's name. So that is a very hard thing to think about when you're in an audition for the first time. and you want to do a great job, and it's very stressful. But I was very, very thankful that I got to work on the series and got to learn from Lisa and the rest of the creative team. And then when the audition came for Grookey, monkeys are my favorite animal, and I was like, I know how to do this. I know who this character is. And then she called and she said I got cast as Grookey, and then I've gotten to voice a couple of other Pokemon along the way. So getting to voice a human and get to do a few Pokemon was like the cherry on top of an already super, super sweet dessert being part of that project. But the really hard part was hit right after I got cast as Chloe. I think I had one session in studio, and I was afraid that this show just wouldn't happen. I didn't know how we would do it or if they would cast someone else. So we got to record from home, which was cool. But then my husband, I had to keep it very tight-lipped with NDA that he had to not know what I was working on. And when you're making weird Pokemon-like noises in a closet downstairs, and he's like, "Are you working on Pokemon?" And I'm like, "No. Why would you ever think that?" So it was a very stressful situation to be a part of Pokemon, but also, like Fight Club, never tell anybody that you're a part of Pokemon. So that was tricky.
Well, thank you so much.
Thank
you
you
so much for coming out.
Absolutely, thank you.
Since you are the new voice of future 9th or 10th Hokage, Sarada Uchiha.
I love that you said that. Thank you so much.
Future Hokage.
Future Hokage.
Do you think that you are different from Sasuke? What's the difference between Sasuke and Sakura? Your character is the difference between Sakura and Sakura.
I feel like in some ways Boruto kind of takes after some of Sasuke's like very impulsive moves. Sarada is a little more. I think she's got a little bit more of her mom in her. She's a great blend of the two of them. I know that she has a great relationship with her dad. I think she would like for her dad to be there a little bit more, but she's definitely learned from her dad, and they have a great bond. I, funnily enough, have never gotten to meet Yuri, and we've been at conventions together. We've been signing Sarada and Sasuke stuff together, and I have never gotten to meet him. We have communicated through Post-its. So I'm hoping that I get to take after Yuri a little bit more and learn from him, just like Sarada learns from Sasuke, because Yuri is such a wonderful actor and a wonderful person. I would like to get to emulate that in real life.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
What would be your persona based on the Persona game?
That's impossible. I would have to make one up. It would have to have a lot of stars and black cats. So that would have to be like maybe I would have like a little cat like familiar that would get to travel with me when I transform, and the look would have to be covered in stars. That would be what I'd have to. No violence, no fists of justice. It'd be really hard to fight in the game, but we'll figure it out.
Okay.
The Venus Love Me chain with stars.
Thank you.
Thank you.
What voice actors did you look up to when you were young?
Oh my gosh. One of my all-time favorites is Christine Cavanaugh, who voiced Chucky in Rugrats. She's also done a lot of live action work as well. And I mean, of course, I love all of the Disney princesses. I think they're all incredible, and so many of them are here this weekend, which is really cool. But I always really loved the raspy, scratchy quality. She had so much texture in her voice. She had such a fun, spunky energy. And I also, growing up, working on camera stuff as well, it was really cool to get to see an actress who had worked as much on camera as she had in voiceover, and getting to see someone who could do both. So she is one of my all-time favorites. There are far too many to name, but she is always at the top of that list.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Who's the most famous person you've met and how that came about? It could be like actor, artist.
Oh man, so that's so tricky because, you know, you could talk to somebody that is the most famous person ever to you, but then someone else has no idea who they are. That's what's so interesting about fame, is there's all these pockets of fame and what people are interested in. So I do remember a couple weekends ago, my mom kind of got starstruck, which was very interesting to see, because she meets a lot of famous people and is not starstruck at all. But she met Paul Williams, who is he is an EGOT winner. He is an incredible songwriter. He has done film work. He's done plays, and he's incredibly talented, gifted, and was such a kind person. I got to work with Claire Danes when I worked on Temple Grandin, which that was very exciting for me. And it was it's a little tricky when you meet someone that you've seen in your favorite TV shows, movies, or that sing your favorite songs, because you're so used to hearing them and seeing them, and now they're in person, now they're in front of you, and it's a little tricky. And I remember when I first met her, she was introducing herself as we are two humans meeting for the first time, and I just in my mind was like, I know exactly who you are, and I know every movie that you've been in, and it took me a little while to like disconnect her from her work and just get to enjoy being in her presence, because she's such a talented person. But I've gotten to meet Connie Britton, who is a wonderful actor that I'm a huge fan of. I'm also not the best person to remember all the famous people that I've met. I know as a teenager, when I would go to LA for the summers and to work on projects, my mom said I notoriously would crash into famous people that were just walking on the street, and I would be like, oh my gosh, I'm so sorry, I just crashed into that woman. She's like, that was Doris Roberts from Everybody Loves Raymond. I was like, I'm so sorry, I didn't know. I also got to meet the legendary star of Back to the Future. And I was working on a video game with him, and I was sitting down having a conversation with him, and everybody else is very nervous. And I thought, why is everybody being so nervous around this guy? And then it turns out after I left, it clicked that he was super, super famous, and I was just super, super clueless. But I got to have a really great conversation with him, so that was great. A lot of people assume that I have gotten to meet and work with Keanu Reeves. I have not. I got to see him leaving the studio and riding off on a motorcycle into the sunset, and I had pulled into a parking spot to go do my session. So that was a pretty cool experience. I feel like that's a good Keanu Reeves moment. But yeah, no, everybody that I have gotten to meet has been very, very, very nice, and they're incredibly talented human beings, and that's been really special to get to interact with them.
Thank you.
Thank you.
How and what's the process of voicing British characters? Because you've voiced a couple of them in your career by now.
Yeah, it's very interesting. When I first started voice acting, I would always want to try to do an accent, and they would say, please don't do an accent, just your natural voice. Mm-hmm. And I think Lizzie in Black Butler was the first time that I got to do an accent. Accents are tricky, especially for shows like Black Butler or for Yakitori, because they needed specific regions. And like with Black Butler, they have a cast of so many characters, and they want the accents to really be right for which characters are from which region. So that can be a little tricky. With Yakitori, I was very surprised that I got cast. And I was so thrilled. Tia Ballard was actually the director, and that was my first time to get to be directed by Tia, who plays Happy in Fairy Tale. So I know her as an actor, and I love her very, very much. So to get to have her on the other side of the glass is a really cool experience. But yeah, for that one, they just sometimes will say, we want a specific type of an accent. We want this region. For that audition, they just said, we need a British accent. Keep it very grounded, very real, and not very character-y. So I just sent something in, and I was really surprised that they said this was a really great fit, because anytime you have an accent, it's a little nerve-wracking. And in the last year, I have gotten to do far more accents in my career than I ever have. So I've gotten to do like a Kiwi accent, I've gotten to do a British accent, I've gotten to do a French accent, I've gotten to do a bunch of different types of accents in the last year, which has been very fun to get to play around with, but it is always very stressful because you want to make sure that you're doing everything right. So it's nice to have somebody from the team who can weigh in and say, maybe check this sound and make sure that you're not making any accidental mistakes.
Thank you. It's very good to know.
Thank you.
You remember how for Liechtenstein and Hatalia you have very high pitch, and I guess German accent, because Liechtenstein is a German-speaking country. Like, how do you do different voices for different roles whenever the roles call for? Like, because Liechtenstein sounds really different from Lucy.
When you audition, you look at the image and you kind of read the breakdown of the character, and whatever that inspires in you, you just have to trust your gut and hope that that is what the production team is looking for. But yeah, a lot of coming up with voices is just taking a risk and what you're inspired to do, and then if they say that's the right fit, then that's what the character sounds like.
All right, well, that answered my question.
Thank you.
So what's the biggest difference between like live action and doing voice actor work? And would you say like you prefer one over the other?
So usually, since I've gotten to do both, if I haven't gotten to do one in a really long time, that's the one I'm like, man, I would really love to do some on camera. Or if I've been working on a movie and I haven't gotten to do voiceover, I'm like, man, I really miss voiceover. So I love both of them. The biggest difference with voiceover, I will be scheduled for a session from like 9 to 1 on Tuesday. And this is what got me into not a lot of trouble, but it was a little dicey when I was trying to record this. So everything is scheduled and it's kind of locked in. Nothing will change unless a script is not ready or a director gets sick or anything like that. For on camera, you will say, like there was a couple years ago, I was shooting an episode of 911. And which was very fun to work on. So I was working on 911, but I also had a bunch of sessions scheduled for Cyberpunk for the Phantom Liberty DLC. So the schedule for 911, they had said these are the days that you're going to work, and I said, okay, let me move my recording schedule around for Cyberpunk, and they were very great about accommodating that. Well, then turns out for an on-camera project, if the weather is bad and we're shooting a beach scene, then the schedule has to change. Or if somebody gets sick and they can't record and we had to change the schedule around. So you could say, oh, I'm gonna be filming Monday through Thursday, and then any of these little changes can happen, and then suddenly you can't film Monday through Thursday. Now you're filming Thursday through next Tuesday. But if you're recording at a video game Thursday through next Tuesday, it gets really hard to like manage all of that. And that's just kind of the nature of doing film and TV, which is why it's hard for a lot of film and TV actors to do voiceover, just because they have to be available 24/7 to do the TV show or the movie that they are locked in to do, because we have to get the project finished on time. It's also really fun to get to wear a costume and to be on set and to get to act with other actors. We don't always get that opportunity for voiceover. I guess you could wear a cosplay to go record for voiceover, but if it makes a lot of noise, it would not be to your benefit. And we don't usually get to record with other actors, so we're imagining what they're gonna do. We're not on the set, so we don't know what the location is going to look like. For a video game, oftentimes they don't have the animatics ready. They're still working on it, so you have to kind of go off of the description, if the production can give it to you, of where you are, how big you need to be, if it's raining, all of these elements that you have to keep in mind for a performance. Whereas when you're on camera, it's all there and you can kind of feel immersed in the world. So those are some of the biggest differences between the two.
Thank you. It was nice meeting you.
Nice to meet you.
Is there anything you don't like about the voice acting business, no matter how, like, even after you've done it for years? Is this something you just don't like at all?
It's not just with voice acting in general. It's just the entertainment industry as a whole. It's just a really difficult industry to be a part of, because it's so competitive. And it's not necessarily anything that I don't like about it. It's just kind of like a fact of it's how it is. Usually when let's say you want to become a doctor or a teacher, you go to college, and then you'll get your master's degree, or you'll go through the process, you'll become a resident, and then once you get a job, you won't go backwards. Like you will keep moving forward in your career. When you're an actor, it doesn't matter that once you get your first lead character, that doesn't mean that you will only play leads from there on out. It doesn't mean that you will always have a job. It doesn't mean that there won't be 2 or 3 years where you will audition and not get cast. And so there's always a level of anxiety, and there's always a level of hustle that you have to keep doing. You can never rest and get complacent and say like, well, I've done it. I've worked on all these shows and now people will keep hiring me. I'll always have a job. That's not true. You always have to keep taking classes. You always have to keep traveling, working, auditioning. And sometimes that can be really, really exhausting or really difficult when life things come up. Sometimes you have to take a break. You might get overwhelmed. You might be dealing with loss, or you have a child, or things like that. And so you have to focus on that aspect of your life, but also you have to find a way to give energy to your career, because if you don't keep auditioning, training, working, someone else will be, and they will be able to audition and jump in, and it'll be harder for you to get back into the swing of things. So it's not necessarily something that I don't like about the industry. It's just like a trickier aspect of the industry. There's less security in it, and so that's why when people say I really want to be an actor, what is some advice you have? I say make sure that it's something that you love no matter what, because you will never ever ever not be working. You will never ever ever not be hustling. You will never not be learning and growing. So if it's just something that you think, yeah, this might be fun for a little while, you're going to burn out or get frustrated. But if you love it and it makes you happy and it feeds your soul, then it's always going to be something that you enjoy training and you enjoy working on the process.
Thank you for the detailed answer.
Yeah,
We're pretty busy. Do you have any like hobbies or like something you do in your downtime that you're like hyped about, or something that you geek out about?
You know, I didn't realize until I became a mom how little downtime moms have, and I don't know how they do it with multiple children and still like stand upright and be positive and go to work and do all the things. I love any time that I get to go work out or go to a yoga class or do anything, any sort of movement with my body or stretch or anything like that. So that is definitely a hobby with me. I grew up dancing, so that's getting to go back and do that is really nice. And I love doing crafts. Any and all kinds of crafts are always fun.
Oh my God, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Thank you so
Thank
much.
you.
Have a great rest of your afternoon.
Thank you, you too.
So what are your most rewarding or challenging scenes you've had to record?
Oh man, it's so hard to pick. There are moments with every single project that I've worked on. So I will narrow it down to one project, and this was one of the most rewarding and challenging projects that I got to work on. I worked on a show called Kotaro Lives Alone on Netflix. I was approached by Stephanie Shea actually to co-direct the project, and I was very excited about that. And I was also very intimidated. And then they said, we're going to need to cast an adult to play Kotaro. It was initially going to be a child, but there was not enough time to get all the lines recorded. So we had like 15 adults audition, and I was one of them. They took all the names off, and they said, the producers picked your voice. Do you want to do this? And so to play the title character of a show and also co-direct it, that was my life for 2 months. There were many days where I was like, what have I done? I'm not going to do justice to the show. It's a very heavy, heartfelt, but emotional show. So it tore me up in a million different ways. But I was very, very proud of it. And just to see how many people embraced Kotaro and loved Kotaro when everyone was not sure who was going to connect with the show and love the show. And it seemed to be everyone connected with and loved the show. And also that my mom and my husband were like, we'll watch one episode because we know you worked so hard. And they both binged the whole thing. And they were like, when's the second season? I was like, I don't know, guys. So that is their favorite thing I've ever worked on. So that was very special for a million reasons.
Awesome. I've seen it on Netflix. I'm going to go watch it.
I hope you enjoy it.
Thank you so much.
Have some tissues ready. It'll cry. But thank you guys so much.